There are a lot of tools that intermediaries can use to influence care use and costs, trying to achieve their various goals. One way of thinking about the identity of any particular intermediary, why and how it's different from others, is to say an intermediary is defined by the specific tools it chooses to use and how it uses them. This won't be the only way of thinking about the identity of an intermediary, but it's one useful thing to try. So then, how does an intermediary handle the development and use of its network? Broad or narrow? Open panel, closed panel? How does it pay providers? Fee-for-service, capitation, DRGs, global budgets? Is it tight on payments to providers or more generous? Strong cost sharing for patients or not so strong, or maybe none? Does it use a gatekeeper or not? Utilization review, a lot, a little, what kind? Does it expend a lot of effort on coverage decisions or go easier and accept more things? In some sense, this is what the people who run intermediaries are expected to be good at. Figuring out their context, their specific goals, the providers and people they have to work with, the other intermediaries they have to deal with or compete against, and so on, and then designing their approach to best meet the goals, mixing and matching existing tools, sometimes making new ones, and then adapting over time. As a result, you'll see many different intermediary structures reflecting many different combinations. It might be fair, at least up to a point, to say every intermediary can be unique in its particular approach. That said, though, there are some general patterns and trade-offs that come up that we can take notice of. First, plans can vary in their overall stance with respect to the tools. Some use many tools to manage utilization and steer toward lower costs and more efficiency, and others use fewer. Of course, enrollees will tend to use more expensive care when the intermediaries are less active, and so premiums or taxes or whatever will need to be higher. On the other hand, plans can get lower premiums or lower tax requirements if they're more aggressive with their use of the tools, but this might require trade-offs with the satisfaction of their providers or their population. Second, it can be useful to think of the tools or combinations of tools as substitutes for each other, at least up to a point. If you use a lot of one, then you can maybe use less of another. I'll give an example. A plan may work a lot on developing provider networks that are the right size for their enrollee population and use provider payment incentives that encourage the physicians and others to be careful with the services they use. If this works, then the plan may have to rely less on things like prior authorization requirements and could maybe use low patient cost sharing, since these might not be required to keep utilization and costs under control or try to drive higher quality. On the other hand, a plan with a very broad network with limited incentives for physicians to pay attention to efficiency might need to expend more energy on utilization review and use more cost sharing to try and steer toward more efficient use and keep costs down. This was one example. If you look around, you'll find others. Cases where plans do a lot with one type of tool and as a result back off on others. There are lots of different variations that you'll see.